I think the thought that went through my mind was we created something really special.
The hardest part is figuring out what you want to master.
Focus on your product.
Can you tell somebody that they suck?
You gotta just go for this is exactly what I want to do for a living.
You can't even tell somebody that their breath is life.
And you're training for the LA Marathon we were talking about.
New York.
That's what I meant. But you blew your calf out.
I did.
So tell me about that. You were running and you just felt... No. So the first time it was sore.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. So I've been training for the marathon, I'd say probably for about 3-4 weeks. And I just wanted to get ahead of it. So, people train for 16 weeks. Some people just are constantly training. And when I decided to do it, I got asked by City Harvest, which is a big charity in New York City. They feed 5.5 million people a year.
Nice.
And so they asked me to be the team captain. And I was like, that came kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can curse, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I was like, fuck it. I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'll do this. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I told my wife, and she's like, oh, fucking great. This guy's going to be like running like a, maniac.
And how long ago was that? Did you accept the...
I guess I accepted probably like 3 months ago.
Got it.
And so I just started running again. And I had been a long distance runner in my past. And then I just I decided that like long distance running was like killing my body. And I think some people are just born for it and some people aren't.
Yeah.
My joints, I love running, but like running super long distance, my joints just feel it after time.
Yeah.
So I took a break from long distance and I sprint a lot. But I was like, whatever, I'll just get back into it because I love it. Anyway, so I started doing long distance probably about 4 weeks ago. And then I did the longest run that I had done over the training period was 13 miles. I ran a half marathon upstate, super hilly, like incredibly hilly.
Was that just on your own? Just training?
Yeah, just training.
Okay.
And the hills are intense, like super intense. Like so intense that I named the parent company that runs one of my businesses after this one hill. It's called Rigger Hill. It's like it is the illest hill of
Why
all
did
time.
you do that? Just for the extra like ass kicking? Because hills are so difficult.
Hills are so difficult, but if you can run hills and like feel good about it,
Yeah.
then running the flats are like
Sure. So it was a training exercise.
yeah, it was just like, and I also love running upstate. Like I live in the city.
Yep.
I spend my life like,
Yeah.
and so like going upstate is just like,
Yep.
just clears my mind.
I got it.
I listen to guys like you on my run.
You said what?
I listen to guys like you on my runs,
Oh man, stop it.
But anyway, I ran this long one, and then 2 days later, that's when my calf went out.
Do you think it was Rigger Hill's fault?
I would blame Rigger for it.
Fucking Rigger. Damn it. I knew it. It's like, this is the thing. Even the short period that I ran, I thought like I was getting kind of good. And by getting kind of good, I meant like I peaked out at 3 miles. But then one time, like I went this different route and I encountered probably the slightest hill that you could ever even call a hill. And the difference in like how much more difficult that was mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anytime anyone like runs, like even my business partner runs a lot and he'll run through like Beverly Hills and there's quite a bit of hills up some of those back streets. And that's just a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
So you were running and at first it just started as your calf being sore.
Yeah, no. So I was running. I didn't feel anything on the long run, and then I typically after the long run, I take a day off of running, and then I'll get back on the program. And after 3 miles, I felt like a tugging on my calf, and I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. Yeah. I'm gonna let her go. Yeah. I'm gonna let this one go. Yeah. And so I stopped running, and I just walked back home, and then I was like, I'm gonna give it like 2 or 3 days just to like reset, and then I went out 3 days later, 1 mile in, and I felt like actually like when you tear a little piece, when you tear paper, you hear that like,
yeah.
I felt that, if that sounds like anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I gotta get this checked out. And so I got it checked out, and the dude that checked it out was like, yeah, you got a tear in your calf, you got to take 2 weeks off.
So right now you're out.
I'm out. I mean, I'm training. I'm in the gym. I'm doing strength training, and I could deadlift. I could do light squats. I could do lunges, but I just can't like bounce on my leg.
And then when are you back on full on running?
So I'll probably be back full on running a week from Wednesday. Oh, today's Wednesday, so in about a week. I'm going to give it a go and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing like compression sleeve on my left leg, like when I'm at home. You know.
Yeah. Man, props to you. And to you, running is, because we talked about this a little bit too, like to me, running, I never got past the point of it being an absolute nightmare. And I never got past the point of every step I took, I was thinking about what was wrong, like where I was feeling pain, where I was starting to get a little out of breath, like whatever. For you, you said that you've gotten well past that point into like where it's almost meditative for you and actual, like you come up with ideas while doing it, right?
So running is absolutely been an expression for me. It's like one of those things where if I'm going through it and I just need to like zone, I know I can rely on running. I don't always take the opportunity, but I know that I can. And so over the years, running has been an opportunity for me to really just like dig into something. Yeah. And if I'm looking to dig into something, I like strategically go out there looking to dig. Yeah. I don't put on headphones. Like I go and I just want to think. Yeah. And, I launched a company called the Meatball Shop about 8.5 years ago. And I would say 50% of the strategy and the menu items for that brand were developed on runs.
Really?
Yeah.
Will you also, like, if you have a really stressful day, situation like that, you go for a run to clear your mind? Does it work like that too?
Sure.
Interesting.
Well, the thing is that you always feel good. It might suck running, for people that don't run all the time. Like,
it does.
It's like the hardest part is getting your sneakers on to go. Yeah. And once you're out there for the first little bit, it's not, it might not be awesome, but you always feel good at the end of a run. Like it's just, you just feel, you're like, thank God that's over. You feel good. Yeah. You're in a better place after a run 9 out of 10 times than you were before a run, unless you get injured, like I did the other day.
Yeah. Did you grow up being athletic? When you were super young, did you get into sports and stuff like that?
When I was a young kid, I've always gravitated to sports. Sports were like, and I grew up in New York City in the public school system, so there are no real sort of like major team sports. There's after school programs. Yep. And so, I dove into the after school programs like in a real way. Everything after school. My parents both worked, so it was like, I'm sure that I dove in like because I loved it, but I'm sure they were like pushing me on that diving board. You know what I mean? And so I've always been an athlete. I love sports. It's something that I've always been good at.
Yeah. What was your main passion when you were younger? Like what sport?
Hockey.
Really?
I was like, I played street hockey as a kid. Everybody played sort of street hockey and roller hockey as a kid in the city. Yeah. And then that I got really good at. I played in police athletic leagues. I got good at it, and I begged my parents to buy me a pair of ice hockey skates. And I slowly pieced together like ice hockey equipment. And and I played. I got good. I played on a travel team, and hockey was my thing.
Really?
As a kid,
you have to go to like New Jersey to do that. Where do you do that at in New York City?
There was a place called Sky Rink on 33rd and 10th.
Got it.
And that's where a lot of kids played. And then Sky Rink closed, and they opened up at Chelsea Piers. And so there's a place called Sky Rink now. And hockey's an expensive sport. It just is. It's expensive because the equipment's so expensive. Yeah. And when you're playing on the league is not cheap. Yeah. And so when you're a kid, growing constantly, your foot grows from like whatever, your foot doesn't stop growing until you're like 13, 14. Yeah. And so an ice hockey skates are like $300 a pop, Yeah,
you're right.
It's expensive.
Take me through this, because I'm just kind of fascinated by like the idea of truly growing up in New York City. Because for me, like I'm from small town Ohio. When I moved out here, I thought like, oh my God, this is so hectic and crazy. Mm-hmm. And now I'm used to it. But now when I go to New York, I'm like, oh my God, this is hectic and crazy. And we can ask Rod, who's in the room here. I got about 3 days in me before I start to like have anxiety and have to leave. But like actually growing up in the city, like what was that like when you were super young?
New York City is New York City made me. Like, I believe that wholeheartedly. I'm also a third-generation New York City kid.
Got it.
So my parents were born and raised in New York City, and their parents were born and raised in New York City, so it's, like, in my blood. It's the epicenter. I mean, I believe, and I think the vast majority of, like, humans on Earth believe, that New York City is the epicenter of culture right now. and creativity and innovation. And I was exposed to that from a very young age, you know? Like, by the time I was 14 years old, I was a, like, hip-hop kid, a raver, a skater. I never was a goth kid. I never got into goth.
I'm glad you skipped that phase.
Yeah, I passed on that. But, like, you know, like, I grew up with a bunch of skate kids and you know, 90s hip-hop developed my, you know, like, raised me. And so I was exposed to all this shit early on, and I paid really close attention to it, and it you know, I feel like growing up in New York City, specifically like in like a middle class family, public school system, lots of kids. I was surrounded by thousands of kids growing up.
Yeah.
I also, like, you know, walked down some pretty dark paths and some pretty dark alleyways as a kid, and
Seems like that'd be easy to do in New York.
It's incredibly easy to do. It's incredibly easy to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, my parents didn't have a ton of cash. So, like, on the weekends, I was in the city. Yeah. You know, like, we didn't go away on the weekends. And so, and I was also, like, a straight up rebel. I was, like, I'm a parent now. I've got 2 sons. Praying to God my kids are, like, not as difficult as I was. Because there was no holding me back. Like, I just didn't listen at all. I was out of the house from a very early age. But I wouldn't have traded. I wouldn't change anything. Yeah. I had to go through what I went through to get to where I'm at. Like, I believe that. And New York City really, you know, it shaped Mike Chernow, shaped who I am. Yep. And I think being exposed to all those different experiences and cultures and people. I mean, if you took I have pictures of me as a kid with all my friends, and, you know, we were all, the diversity was just incredible. Like, it was like Asian kids and Indian kids and black kids and white kids and Spanish kids, and it was like tons of kids. We were all together. Yeah. And, you know, hanging out in Washington Square Park and Central Park as a kid was like, you know, I've always wanted to do like a walk around and like and do like a piece of content on all the spots that I hung out at as a kid, because they all influenced me. Yep. You know, and all the kids that I hung out with, like, whenever they come back to New York, they're like, oh, let's go to the Mine Tree. Yeah. And I'm like, God, the Mine Tree.
You should definitely do that. Because for someone like me, like, I'm fascinated by it. And I think for me, there was like quite a bit of a learning curve from moving out of Akron, Ohio. You know what I mean? And I think that, like, moving to LA with it being so diverse and with it just felt so crazy. I loved it, and I wanted to wrap my head around it and be a part of it. But there was like quite a bit of a learning curve, because it's really sort of repetitive in a lot of the middle of the country, and you're kind of surrounded by a lot of people that look like you, I think, in a lot of places. And I don't know, you just don't get that. I think that is so important, like, to understand being able to mix in with other cultures and other people and the value you can get from that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I attribute my passion and love for culture to growing up in the city. Yeah. I think culture, like, I've built all the businesses that I've launched strictly on culture. Yeah. I believe culture, like, I have a saying that I just stand behind 100%. Business without culture is dead. Yeah. Like, I believe that more so than anything. Yeah. Like, you can have an amazing product, an incredible product, and you can offer amazing service. But if there's no culture to back it or no culture behind it internally, it's dead. It doesn't have legs. And I can draw a direct line to my love and desire and passion to just sort of empower my team with culture to New York, growing up in the city, you know, just being exposed to it.
Is it hard to embed culture like that in groups of staff or in a team or you know what I mean? It's something I'm a little fascinated by, and I think I started my company when I was pretty young, and I didn't recognize the importance of even company culture. Does that just kind of come easily for you because you realize the value of it and you always have, or is it something that you like struggle with?
I mean, I wouldn't want to discourage anybody from attempting to push culture. Yeah. But I think it's either you have it or you don't, right? Yeah. And there's like, you know, for me, empowering the team through love and kindness, and, you know, like at Seamore's we call it stees, you know, like that is something I believe is innately part of you or not.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, like the steez that we have at Seamore's is, you know, you walk into a room and you high five and hug, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And that also is, in my opinion, the most challenging thing to sustain as you scale, right? Because like today, people aren't interested in one business. It's like, how many fucking businesses can you put on the map, and how fast can you do it?
Yeah.
And what are your you know, what's revenue look like? You know, like, it's just, you know, I feel like culture is definitely an element that is sometimes overlooked when scaling. And I'm like, you know, I should get culture tattooed across my fucking chest.
Yeah, you should.
Because that's...
Cardi B just named her kid culture.
Really?
Yeah, so just saying.
Cardi.
Yeah.
Hey, yo.
There you go. But yeah, I think the crazy thing for me is I think that, like, for instance, when I started a business, I felt like you're just not, I don't know how to say it. Like, until you really dig deep and talk to other people with businesses, you're not told the importance of that. You're told revenue, profit, salaries, all these kind of basic things, right? And then when you go raise money, when you go to sell, when you go do any of those things, those are the same questions they ask. You don't realize until you're kind of growing this thing and you're a few years in, like, oh, there's this other element that nobody really talks about or teaches you, I don't think, in college or, you know, whatever, that is so important and such a make or break thing to building businesses, you know?
You know, it's interesting you say that. So I believe why it's not widely taught, and the people that really focus on it are like Tony Robbins, right? Like his whole thing is like let's get to the fucking root.
Yeah.
Let's get to the root.
Yeah.
The foundation, the core.
Yeah.
And that's sort of that. It's like a spiritual. It's not scientific. You know what I'm saying? And so I think, you know, the only reason why I can speak to this is because I have worked with a number of folks who are either managers or partners of mine that just do not have the culture gene.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like culture is I also have a little thing that, you know, culture cowboys are difficult to come by. You know what I mean? They're just like, the culture cowboys are typically out there creating cool shit.
Yeah.
And they're not for hire. Typically they're not for hire. They're out there, like, you know, blazing, you know, just doing shit.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if you are a culture cowboy, you probably know, or cowgirl.
Yeah.
You know, and make sure that, you know, I think one of the challenges that I run into in business is typically culture and operations, like, butt heads, you know, because like people with culture in mind, brand in mind, sort of almost more marketing in mind, want to be relevant all the time. They just want to, like, continue to do cool shit and stay, and not necessarily only for the people that are experiencing your brand or your business or your group as a consumer.
Yeah.
But really, for me, it's about my squad, my team, the people that are out there every day waving the flag.
Yeah.
And you know, people that are in charge of the finances and the operations and the logistics tend to not really see that. Just like they would never be able to walk in front of a group of people and win them over through having, like, an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna be like, yo, man, I can keep your cogs and labor in check. Like, I could do that with my eyes closed and make you really happy. Your P&L can look spot on.
Yeah.
But you know, the culture cowboys are out there, like, creating the shit to sell.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Let's say I'm a young culture cowboy with this podcast just blaring through my speakers right now, and I'm like, yes, Michael gets me. I'm a culture cowboy. How important is it for them to know operations or logistics on any level? Like, would you say not at all? Would you say a little bit? You know what I mean? Because I think that we're running into an interesting... like issue, right? Because like I see not issue obviously in the conversation, but because like you have the operations people who understand operations and know nothing about culture, and those people usually suck, but there might be great employees if you need them to, you know what I mean, to help do your thing. Also, you have these young people. I think a lot of them, especially in this current sort of climate, that are these cowboy types that just want to do everything their own way and don't want to know logistically how you start a business. And those people end up kind of going off into no man's land also. You know what I mean? So how would you advise a young culture cowboy to know just enough to how to actually become an entrepreneur? Because there's a big, you know what I mean? That's a big leap.
Yeah. It's a great question. And I have, I've thought about it a lot. And so in the beginning, you got no choice. You have to partake in every aspect of the business. You don't have to be good at every aspect of the business, but you can't hide from it because culture gets you off the ground, and creativity and innovation is like what sparks this thing. But it has to operate or you fail. Like that's just the bottom line, right? And so you have to be open to learning, and also just beating your head against the wall in the beginning, even if you suck at it, to be aware of it.
Yeah.
That said, if your business does end up gaining traction and getting some interest, I'm not a P&L guy. Yeah. I'm just not. Like I could read a P&L and I can manage a P&L and I could do all those things that I need to do because I had to in the beginning.
Yep.
But ultimately, it's not my strong suit, and I'm very comfortable saying that. Like I am not a great operator, but I have done it for years, right? Begrudgingly, but I have, because you have to. And so that said, I think your assets and your strengths are what you should pour all of your. I have a story. I actually told this story to Rod yesterday, which somebody told to me a while back that just resonated. Like I didn't think about it this way until this dude told me this story, and he said, "You're on a sailboat, and you're out at sea, and you're cruising, and all of a sudden, a hole." Somebody notices there's a fucking hole in the boat, and all this water starts rushing into the boat, and everybody on the boat is like, "Holy shit, we're gonna fucking die! Let's go! Let's all rush down and try to fix that hole." And so now the whole crew is focused on the liability, the hole in the fucking boat, and they forget about this massive sail that is going to bring them to safety.
Yep.
The sail is the asset. The sail is gonna fucking save them.
Yeah.
But they're all focused on this hole. And before they know it, they're further and further out into sea, and this hole is not really fixable in a quick amount of time.
Yep.
And so I believe that, you got to focus. You've got to spend the majority of your time on your strengths, because when you spend the majority on your time on your weaknesses, which a lot of people tend to do, because it just takes longer for people to do shit that they're not good at.
Yeah.
And they tend to want to do shit that they're not good at, or tend to spend a lot more time doing shit that they're not good at because they're not good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I feel like as people, we love to focus on the negatives, right? Because they're the scary things. So you want to focus on the scary thing and like, oh no, but this issue, instead of focusing on all the positives. I mean, that's an issue with a lot of people with sort of even just general happiness, right? But I think that translates in business where you forget what got you there, or you forget what could get you out of it because you're too busy focused on one retailer or one issue, That's good.
I think strengths are the interesting thing is that like people take their strengths for granted in a lot of ways. Like if something just comes naturally to you and it's easy for you, you should double down on it.
Yeah.
Like straight double down, triple down. And just because it's easy doesn't mean you're not working. You know what I mean?
That's another thing, man. People feel like they have to be physically like working hard to be making progress.
In my opinion, if something comes easy to you and you are successful because of it, fucking go all in.
Yeah.
Because life is short, dude. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it just is. Yeah. And I'm not an old dude at all, but I'm very confident in saying that like I have gone all in on my emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
because I'm not going to be the guy that's going to like read a book and recite it back to you. You know what I mean? I'm just not.
Yeah.
And I know that about myself.
Yeah.
But, you know, walking into a room with any group of people, and unintentionally winning them over and making them feel like good about themselves, like happiness for me is the crux of my success.
Yep.
And it starts with myself, of course, you know, being happy, feeling confident and happy. But, you know, I think having the ability, I'm in the hospitality industry. So, you know, the mission statement at Seamore's is not like, we sell awesome food and we love fish tacos, so you can love them too. Like the mission statement is, we are in the business of making people extraordinarily happy. Doesn't talk about food, doesn't talk about beverage, doesn't talk about service. It talks about, I am in the business of making you happy, period.
Yeah.
That is it. And if I'm not happy, I can't help you.
Yeah.
So like we focus at Meatball Shop, Seamore's, we focus on literally not making decisions in an unhappy place. Yeah. Because, you know, they just never work out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
What do you do if you're stuck in an unhappy place and need to make a decision?
Push pause.
And for how long?
You know, it all depends on the situation. Obviously, life is organic, right? Shit just comes up, and people are, you know, sometimes, you know, I think what makes me a relatively good executive is that like I am confident making decisions on the fly, and I'm also confident. I'm like prepared to deal with the repercussions of those decisions. And I think that is an element as to what makes an entrepreneur is the ability to like have confidence in just doing shit, making a decision, and like saying something and doing it. But I also know that like if you walk into a room and point out all the people that hate you, because there are people that walk around life like that, like they walk into a room and they're like, damn, that person's giving me some snide look. Oh, you know, they like literally pick out all the negatives in the room. Yeah, it's a really unhappy place to be, and you live in a reactionary world. You know, like I believe in responding to life, and it took me a long time to get there because I spent years just fucking being a maniac. Yeah. But like over time and working on myself and really paying attention to my patterns, like I've learned, and I try to empower my team to learn, that if you fire back a response or an answer or a reaction, you know, like the only time when reaction is good for me is if somebody's punching me in the face. Yeah. Like somebody's coming at me with like violence and anger. Like I'm going to throw my hands up, move out of the way, and like hit you in an elbow. Yeah. Like that's my reaction to that. But like if somebody asks me a question or says something that I really don't like or fires me an email that I'm just like, it just boils my blood. Yeah. The worst possible thing I can do is react to that. Yep. I take a day, I open up the window, I let some fucking air in, I breathe. I'm like, maybe I'll write an email and I'll boomerang it. So I won't send it. I use this Google app, this Gmail app that allows me to write an email so I can get it off my chest, boomerang it, and say pop back into my inbox at the top of my inbox in 24 hours. So it'll pop back up in my inbox in 24 hours, and I'm like, oh, fuck, thank God I didn't send that shit. You know what I mean? Really? Like, it's amazing. Yeah.
What percentage of emails that you boomerang do you think you change?
Probably 50%.
Wow. Damn, I should start boomeranging.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, no, it's dope.
I just regret it when I read it below the response.
Yeah, this has been like a big thing for me. The react respond thing has been like a big learning challenge for me because I feel like too many people react, including myself. I mean, I'm talking to you, but I'm talking like out loud. You know, I mean, I'm talking to myself. I'm like, Mike, you just got to remember to respond to shit, you know? Yeah, yeah. Because responding gives you just, it's not like your answer might not be that much better or worse, but time between hearing something or feeling something and giving back a reaction, time is only good. Yeah. It's only fucking good. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to learn that when I first started doing this podcast, to be honest, because like you start to, you know, you have your camera, you have your fancy little microphones, you know, you got an hour to talk, you know, and you sort of just start responding for the sake of keeping the conversation going and trying to get through an hour and tell a good story. And I think that like when I learned to sort of listen to what the person was saying, think, and then respond, it changed, massively. And I think that I changed it in the way that I talk to people day to day because of learning it on the podcast. But it's a totally different thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Let me ask you this. Can you tell me what sort of the dark side, or a little bit of it, of being a young kid in New York looks like? Like, what's some of the bad? Because what I want to do is I want to know the bad and get a picture of that. And then I want to know how you made this transition, because the way you talk now is like, obviously you're incredibly smart, but you're also really like self-aware. You're really emotionally intelligent. Like, how does a kid who's getting into trouble in New York go from that to this?
Yeah. I spent, so when I grew up in New York, when I was growing up, like I said, I was exposed to a lot of bad news. Uh-huh. And I think a lot of the kids in my neighborhood and a lot of the kids in just the city in general, whether you were rich or poor or somewhere in the middle, mm-hmm. you're just exposed to really anything you want. Mm-hmm. And so I had a really rough upbringing. I had a really difficult time at home. I had a tough relationship with my father, just really just not awesome relationship. And that was from early on. I think some people are just meant to be parents and some people aren't. Mm-hmm. My dad, though, I'm sure he loved me to death, just didn't understand how to be a parent to me. And so I reacted to that. I went out and I just, like, from very young, I rebelled, and I got into drugs really early, mm-hmm. and partying really early. And
like what age?
12.
Got it.
And by the time I was 14, 15, I moved out of my parents' house at 15, uh-huh. and I was just like straight, off to the races. Like, it was like impossible to stop me.
Did you still go to school?
I did. I actually finished high school. I don't know how I did that, yeah. But because I don't know how I did it, but I did. I always hung out with older kids, and New York City was just a really, like, if you wanted to get into trouble, you could. Mm-hmm. And so I did. And, I think that I was the kid that, like, I'd always had a job, though. Somehow I started working in restaurants when I was 13 years old, and I loved being there at night. And there was an outlet for me to just be out at night with older people. Mm-hmm. And so I always had a job in a restaurant or a nightclub. It was hairy, man. It was hairy. I knew early on that I had a real problem, and I knew that it was like a serious thing that at some point I was going to have to look at. Yeah. I'm lucky. I'm real lucky, man. I got out of it. But, when I was 23, after years of just like beating my body down, I got sober, and I've been sober for 14 years. And
congratulations. How did that happen? Was there an event or anything that happened? It
was a series of events. Yeah. It was, I was just doing lots of, not awesome shit. Mm-hmm. And found myself in really sort of precarious situations where I'd be like, oh my God, how did I end up here? Like, yeah. This is bad. Yeah. There was a moment where I loved my job. My job really defined me at that age, because I was this young kid bartending at a really awesome restaurant. I loved the food. I loved the beverage and the service side of things, but I really just loved my job. Uh-huh. And my boss, I mean, I don't really talk about this much, but I pretty much OD'd about 2 weeks before I got sober. Uh-huh. And it was a scary moment in my life. And I was like, dude, you got to just slow the fuck down. Yeah. You just got to slow the fuck down. And I just couldn't. Yeah. And so I went 2 weeks on this, like, death march, and then finally I slept through work, and I'd never slept through work. I would go to work on no sleep. Yeah. And I slept through work, and my boss was like, Mikey, I love you to death, kid. Like, I got hired there at 20. Uh-huh. And he was like, I love you to death, but I can't watch you kill yourself, man. I'm just not going to do it. You're fired. And I was like, please don't fire me. And he was like, no, I can't help you, man. Like, you got to go figure your shit out. And so I said, Frank, I'll do anything. Just do not fire me. He was like, well, then get your ass sober. You got to show up to work for 30 days at 8 o'clock in the morning. You got to call me when you get here. If you're a minute late, you're fired. And so thank God for that dude, man. He saved my ass. And he also gave me a reason to want to like turn my life around.
Yeah.
And I did, and I got sober. And you know, very quickly, like somehow, some way, very quickly, I turned to fitness. And a couple of guys just like knew I was getting into a lot of fights, and towards the end, and a couple of guys were like, you know, you need an outlet, and they took me to a Muay Thai gym, and I like fell in love with Muay Thai kickboxing, like fell in love with it instantly, and it just taught me discipline, and that was like my first sort of like real. Like I went into this gym, I saw all these tough dudes like getting after it, and I was like, I want to be that, I want that. And they were like, you can have this, but here's what you got to do. And I trained 4 hours a day. I fell in love with it. I like very quickly got into shape, started eating right, and I felt like Mike Chernow for the first time in years. I felt like me. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And
That's incredible. Yeah. So you'd say work, because work was just a job, right? At that point, there was no promise or nothing of what would come, right?
Not at all.
It was just the purpose of having a job, and then Muay Thai or really any sort of personal development, fitness, is what changed your entire life around.
Mm-hmm. I think I was always the kind of guy that people. I had a lot of friends. I had a shit ton of friends. Yeah. And and from the people that were like actually killing it in life, that were older than me, they'd be like, dude, you got so much potential. You just gotta chill. Yeah. You just gotta like get your shit together. Yeah. And I'd be like, yeah. But I never, when I was 15, like I said, I moved out of my parents' house. Yeah. And I lived in the dopest cribs. You know what I mean? Like I never like
the party houses or what?
Like all the houses.
Yeah.
Like
just because you had so many friends.
Yeah, I just didn't live. I was living in a loft on Mercer, right above the APC store for like 2 years as this kid. Yeah. Like there was like bawling. Yeah. And feeling like, I lived in, I always ended up in a pretty dope situation. And I don't, and it was like I said, like I was able to work, figure out ways to put myself in a good situation. Yeah. And I did that with people. I did that with where I rested my head, and I knew that about myself. I knew that I had a lot of weaknesses, but I knew that I had some strong assets. And as soon as I got sober, I like sort of subconsciously really dove into those assets, and one of them happened to have been athleticism and strangely discipline that I just didn't know I had. Yeah. But I do. Like I have something. Like a couple months ago, I people were asking me on Instagram like what is your secret sauce? Like what is it? Like what do you do? You work out, you do this, you business and this, and I was like, honestly, commitment is key. Yeah. Like you just gotta fucking commit. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot of shit talkers, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with like talking about what you want to do in life, because I believe in that. But like commitment is a real thing, and I think commitment is something that I was able to really develop. I mean, certainly to partying. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
It's funny to me how a lot of like those qualities are so closely related, right? Like the hardcore partying and the hardcore health. You know what I mean? And the hardcore social, like the social, same thing that helps you be social and be a party boy and everyone loves you is the same thing that helps you build a great company culture. Like it's really interesting. I've met a lot of people that have those same things, and it's like, I don't know what it is. I'm in no position to like say I have the answers, but it just seems like there's something about if you chase the things that you think make you feel better, or like the Band-Aids or the fix-it, being the drugs and the partying and the girls and the whatever, you go down a terrible, terrible path because you're a determined, committed person, and you're going to be committed to getting fucked up, right? Mm-hmm. But if you just can somehow chase the positive part of that, which is a lot harder, and the work sucks. You know what I mean? It sucks a lot more to go to a Muay Thai gym than to a club. Mm-hmm. But damn it pays off. You know what I mean?
So I mean, I owe my life to I owe my life to a bunch of people, but you know, I think, you know, I'm an extreme dude.
Yeah.
I'm just an extreme person in everything I do.
Yeah.
You know, and people that work with me know that about me. You know, and so whatever it is that I like, I've also like, I also believe in doing what you say you're gonna do. Like my business partner now, who's got an insane pedigree and just like, you know, a turning point in my career was when this guy who was a mentor of mine saw what I did with Seamore's after opening night, and he wrote me an email that night. I invited him to the opening of the restaurant, and he had built 2 massive companies in the industry, and he wrote me an email that night saying he wanted to leave his C-level role at this huge company to help me grow Seamore's. And I was like, you know, and the 2 things that he's taught me, I mean, there's many things that he's taught me, but the 2 major things that he's taught me is do what you say you're gonna do. Like he says that shit constantly, and those are the people that in anything, you know, in anything, like if you say you're gonna finish a project, fucking finish the project. If you say you're going to show up to a meeting and you're gonna have X, Y, and Z, show up to the meeting and have X, Y, and Z. And the minute you don't, it's a little thing.
Yeah.
And he also says fail often, fail fast, which I love. You know, it's like we fail. Human beings fail.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like you fall down. Like first time you put on a pair of skates, first time you step on a skateboard, like you are going to fall down. It's going to hurt. It's going to suck. Period. You know, get it out of the way as fast as you can.
Yep.
Fail often, fail fast. So, you know, those are 2 things that he's taught me that, you know, it's walking through life, I think, and again, like, you know, I don't know shit, but I do know a few things and I've had some experience, and I feel like the more comfortable we become with accepting people for who they are, the easier life is, you know, because you could battle, you know, everybody's different. People are going to piss you off. Most people aren't going to think the way you think.
Yeah.
And that shit's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me ask you this. When did you decide to go from, so you get healthy, you're becoming a Muay Thai fucking superstar, I'm guessing. Get your job locked in, I'm guessing. When did you decide, like, that you wanted to try your own thing? That you wanted to open a place? Was the first thing you did open a place?
Yeah. So I about 2 years after I got my shit together, you know, I felt really good. I felt like I met a woman that is my wife now. She's the mother of my kids. And she is like, finding her made me believe that like, I can really find true, like, you know, no artificial flavor happiness. And so she was amazing for me. And then, you know, about 2 years in, I said, you know, I can do more. I know I can do more. And so I asked Frank to sit down with me, and I was like, dude, I want to do my own thing. And I'm not saying I want to do it right now, but I just know that I've got this desire to go out there and crush it. And he was like, and I think he said this. Well, he says now that he said it to encourage me. But he really discouraged. What he said to me was really discouraging. Although fucking gave me a flame and a fire to want to just dominate. Yeah. And he basically said, I don't think you have it in you, kid. But if it's something that you really want to do, you should go to culinary school. Yeah. And so that week, I signed up for culinary school, and you know, right as I was going to culinary school, the culinary school that I went to had launched a program with the Cornell Hotel and Restaurant Management School, where they were teaching a restaurant management program. So I went to culinary school. I got my degree in culinary arts. I did this management program and got a degree in restaurant management, and I just didn't stop. Like, I made a plan. I said, I'm going to go to culinary school. I'm going to call Dan back, who's my childhood best friend and my partner in the Meatball Shop. He was living in Cali, and I was like, I'm gonna call him back from Cali to bring him, tell him that, we're gonna do a restaurant together because we always talked about it as kids. And I said, I'm gonna call him, get his ass back to New York. We're gonna develop a business plan. We're gonna find investors, and we're gonna do it. And I mean, you could call it luck, or you could call it determination, commitment, and hard work. But that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I went to culinary school. I convinced Daniel to come back to New York. Wrote a business plan. Put it in front of regulars at the restaurant that I was working at, because these guys have watched me grow up. They watched me get sober. They watched me go to culinary school, and I was feeding them this information, sort of planting seeds with the guys that I thought could potentially be investors of my future. And as soon as I had that plan, I dropped it in front of all of them, and they all fucking threw down cash.
Really?
Yeah, and that's sort of like, it doesn't always work like that, you know what I mean? But I had a captive audience because I was bartending.
Yeah.
So, and these guys literally, I was there for 8 years. They watched me become a man. Yeah. And I think that they believed in me, and something that, a bunch of these guys said, like, and people say, is typically investors do not invest in businesses. They invest in operators. They invest in people. Yep. And, obviously, as we all know, and you hear it over and over and over again, people are the number one. People are everything. Yeah. People are just everything. And I think investors see that. So these investors, I came up with a pretty crazy idea, man. Like, I was like, I'm going to open up a restaurant that only sells meatballs. Yeah. And they were like, and I was like, no, I'm telling you.
And why that concept? Like, where did that come? Did that come from a run?
No, that didn't come from him, but elements of it did. Yeah. That came from. So I worked at this amazing restaurant in the East Village, little spot, but just like unbelievably delicious and super popular, and just a dope spot for years, and still is running and kicking ass. And the one menu item that was ordered with every table was the rigatoni ragu. It's a bowl of rigatoni pasta with the best fucking tomato sauce you've ever had in your life, meatballs and sausage, Parmesan cheese, just like salt of the earth, amazing Italian-American dish. Yeah. Everybody had it. It didn't matter if they were alone and they wanted the steak, they would order a ragu. And so I saw that. And so for years, I would order, being like sort of health-conscious guy, I would order a bowl of rigatoni ragu, sans the rigatoni. I would just have a bowl of meatball, sausage, and tomato sauce with a side of broccoli, side of spinach. And I would dip the broccoli in the sauce, and I would just do it like that. And every time I'd have it, people would be like, what are you eating? And I'd be like, I'm ordering the rigatoni ragu, just no rigatoni. They'd be like, let me get that. And it just, one day, like, my partner, Dan, and I were like bumping heads trying to figure out what we were going to do, what restaurant we were going to open. And I looked at him, and I was like, everybody fucking loves meatballs. Like, everybody's, like, very few people are going to throw a meatball out of bed, Yeah. And I was like, what about meatballs? What if we just open up a little spot that just served bowls of meatballs with tomato sauce and bread, like $5 bowls of meatballs in the Lower East Side, and just kill it, and just like be the late night spot. Yeah. And that developed into, a bunch of different kinds of meatballs, a bunch of different sides, meatball heroes, meatball sandwiches, meatball sliders. And we had this plan. We had this thing called the Meatball Shop. And I would say 50% of the people that heard it literally were like, good luck. Like, no chance. No one's coming to a restaurant to just have meatballs. Yeah. And the other 50% were like, holy shit, that's brilliant. Yeah. That's fucking brilliant. Here you go. Yeah. Take a check. Yeah. And so found, I knew exactly where it was. Dan had been out of New York for 10, 12 years. And he's the most amazing chef I know to date. He's an unbelievable chef. He's also like an insane utilitarian dude, like just hardcore guy. Like if the war was coming, you would just want to get as close to him as possible. He's not going to like tell you how awesome you are. Yeah. But he's going to save your fucking life,
One of those guys.
Yeah.
So is he the one who came up with all the recipes and that type of stuff? Mm-hmm. Got it. And then, man, so then when you launched it, was it a pretty immediate, what was the initial feedback?
So we got really lucky. We didn't know anything about business, like real business, because neither of us were like Harvard Business School grads
Yeah.
or college graduates for that matter. We were just two guys that had lived in the restaurant industry our whole lives. But we did get some insight, and we were told to get a publicist. And we had a niche enough concept, like a niche enough idea, like nobody had done a meatball restaurant before. So we had a niche enough idea that like we could potentially get some interest from PR and press. And so we begged this guy, not really begged him. Like Daniel and I found this restaurant. I knew, I'll back it up a little bit. I knew exactly where I wanted it to be. I knew that if we were going to open up a late night sort of munchy spot, it had to be in the LES, and it had to be south of Houston, north of Rivington, east of Allen, and west of Essex. Like that little.
How big of an area is that?
That's 4 city blocks.
Got it.
Like
so you were pretty.
Like I just had it like right here, right in between my ears. Like I just knew I had this. I closed my eyes and I could see the spot.
Yeah.
The inventory obviously is not. You're not working with like New York City. You're working with like
4 blocks.
4 blocks.
Yeah.
And so he was like, he's like, dude, we gotta be open to more areas. And I was like, yo, dude, like, I'm just telling you, like, if we're gonna do this right, like, I just felt that it had to be down there because I felt like that's where I spent most of my youth.
Yeah.
That's where I spent that was me.
Yeah.
That was, I stomped those streets for years, and I just knew that like the story, right, like. The story's authentic. Yeah. It's real. Like that's important.
Yeah.
It's where it should be.
Yeah.
And so we found this spot. I don't know how we did it, but we found this spot right in the heart of it. And we opened it up, and Daniel and I we raised $390,000. We put our life savings of $20,000 in. And we had no money to really build the restaurant outside of with our own hands. So we built the restaurant. We were in there every day. We didn't have money to it was in the depths of winter. We got the keys the day before Thanksgiving, 2009, and we didn't have money to turn the heat on because we didn't want to blow our load because heat in New York City is expensive.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to spend $2,000 a month on a heating bill. So we just didn't put the heat on, and we worked our asses off 20 hours a day building this restaurant together in the bitter fucking cold, And this publicist, big time publicist in New York City, showed up one day, and he saw the two of us like grinding hard, like grinding really hard, and we sat down with him like covered in sawdust, and we were like, "Look, man, we really don't know what we're doing, but we know we got something special and something fun, and we need somebody to help us tell our story. What do you think?" And he just like looked at us and he was like, "I got you."
Wow.
And so he took us on, and we had paper on the windows. Because we didn't have building permits, and so if the Department of Buildings rolled by, like we'd be fucked. Yeah. But B, you want some sort of reveal. And so the day that we opened, Daniel and I were like, we're not going to take the paper off the windows until we literally open the door for the first time. Yeah. And so I remember very clearly, like it was yesterday, and I was just writing this out. We were both standing in the back of the restaurant. I am the optimist, and he is the total skeptic. Like, just like I'd walk into this shit, and I'd be like, "Oh, damn, I got water," and he'd walk in and be like, "Yo, you drank half the fucking thing." Yeah, you know what I mean. And so I was like, "Yo, man, 75% chance we are gonna crush it. 25% chance we're just gonna have to wait it out."
Did you make those odds up?
I just did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to be clear. Yeah. I want to be sure.
Yeah.
That's good odds.
Yeah. And he was like 25% chance we succeed, 75% chance, we fucking fail miserably.
Yep.
And we took the paper off the windows, and God's my witness, there was a line from the front door about 250 people deep around the corner, all the way half to 3/4 of the way down Orchard Street. And
there was really a moment where you pulled paper off a window to reveal a crowd.
And there was a line of people that wrapped the block.
That's the movie moment.
Yeah, and it was wild. And so we actually asked everybody to come in front of the restaurant. And we took a still photo, and the New York Post used that photo. And that line did not stop.
Wow.
And people were waiting 4 hours for Meatballs for ever. You know, it was insane.
Did you have enough product?
We made a lot of meatballs, and we were constantly rolling and roasting meatballs. Like that was like, you know, people would just sit there and watch because it's an open kitchen. So we just had dudes and chicks back there just like constantly we grind everything in house, grinding meatballs, rolling meatballs, roasting meatballs, grinding meatballs, rolling meatballs. So we were just called the roll 'em and roast 'ems, and those are the kitchen crew, just like, you know, and it was just a fucking special moment in life for us. And people loved it. They loved the fact that it was two kids that grew up together that have never not had a job in a restaurant, that are just passionate about food and people, and brought some like crazy story to life. Yeah. And because of that, like we were put on we were on Chelsea Handler and Jimmy Fallon and Jay Leno, and fucking we had a TV show. I mean, it was just crazy. And we were both like, this is crazy. Yeah. And one of the original investors, about 6 months in, saw this like anomaly and asked to meet with us and was like, yo, I want to open up 5 more of these. And Daniel and I, you know, like our dream is like, yo, we're going to get rich and buy our parents, you know, buy our parents an apartment. Yeah, and we'll get them out of their rent controls, you know. And this guy was like, here's $3.5 million. And Daniel and I are like, yo, like, dude. Shit. And so, yeah, man, we built 5 more restaurants together. And Meatball Shop has become a bit of a institution in New York, you know, and I learned about myself that like operating a business for a long period of time is really not where I strive. Like not like my strongest asset. My strongest asset is development. Yeah, I love creating. I love building. I love putting a team together. I love fucking getting in front of a group of people and just like firing them up and getting them fucking excited to go out there and just crush. Yeah. And that's what I do well. Yeah. And
can I ask you this? Yeah. Do you remember the feeling? Like, do you remember the feeling of like going home that night after that first big day? Like what you felt like in that like, did it just feel like, oh my God, my entire life just changed? Or were you still, there was too much stress that you couldn't even really soak it in? Or like, what did that feel like? Because at this point, your life has now changed from guy with a job to like, you're on this whole, now you're a culture cowboy just sailing off. You know what I mean?
You know, I honestly can say this, and it saddens me to say it out loud, but I haven't felt that feeling yet.
Really?
You know, not like I mean, I know that I am grateful and stoked about the life that I've got, but you know, people will tell me constantly, you know, you're like a success story, dude. Yeah. Like you're.
But it's not even about because I've had sort of that discussion before too, and it's not that feeling of like I made it, like sort of that, because that feeling, I don't know if that exists. But even just like, you didn't have the feeling of like my life is different now, like I'm my own boss now. Even if that was a stressful feeling or a whatever feeling, but did it feel any way, or was it just you just kept cranking?
You know, so I've definitely had a plethora of those moments throughout my career where I was like, wow, I can't like take a second to smell the roses. Like, this is amazing. I think at that moment, at that moment when all those people were there waiting online, and I think I'm trying to put myself back in that situation. I think the thought that went through my mind was, we created something really special. Yep. Did I feel like it was like life-changing? I don't know. You know, it was life-changing. So, you know, that restaurant, it changed my life forever. Yeah. It changed that day. Yeah. That day changed my life forever.
Yeah. I think part of, like, I picture it like a movie scene where like you rip the paper off the window and like life will never be the same because the crowd, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I picture it.
You know, the truth is that like, it's crazy because when I tell that story, you know, that's like, it's real, you know, it's funny. Like, I've got a story. When I was 19, I moved out here, and I just like painted the town red. You know what I mean? Like, I was like leaving New York because I was trying to get out of New York, just because I was like, oh, if I move to LA, like everything will be all right.
Yeah.
And I just like took Mike with Mike. You know, I was with me. I was like that guy.
Yep.
And literally, it's so funny that my boy picked me up from the airport in a drop top red Mazda Miata.
Nice. I thought you were gonna say like some LA like West Coast lowrider.
No, like a little red like chicken nugget. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I got in the car, and this is back in the day when I was just not healthy.
Yeah.
And I lit a cigarette. Literally the minute I touched down in LA, got in the car, lit a cigarette. We're driving on the 10, and I flicked the cigarette out the window, get pulled over. And the cop is like, and the cops walk over to my side of the car, and they're like, ID, and I'm like, I'm not fucking driving the car.
Yeah.
And they were like, ID, and that was the perfect depiction. It was like out of a movie, because the year that ensued, because I got a ticket for flicking a cigarette out the window.
Yeah.
Was pretty much that. Just like set the tone for the whole rest of the year.
Like the whole rest of the year was just
like
flicking the cigarette ticket, flicking the cigarette ticket.
And it was like out of a movie. So like, that day was an incredibly special day in my life. It marked a moment where I felt like I had done something special, and it gave me the confidence to continue and to commit, and knowing that knowing not a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like knowing not a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think that what I'd like to say is if there's anybody out there that's watching this, right, or listening to this, and they're on the fence about whether they can or they cannot, because that's the question, right? Like, can I? Is this going to work? Is it going to work? Like, my advice to them is, yes, you can, right? Like, not everybody is built to be an entrepreneur, right? Like, I think that we're in, your boy Gary Vee, and who I listen to, and who he's like, this is the era for entrepreneurs. This is the time where it's celebrated to be your own person, to be your own, to follow that dream. Back in the day, like being a businessman was not like cool, and so, but it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? Like everybody wants to ball. Everybody wants to bling out, and it's not like that. Like from my experience, it's just not. Like I own fucking 13 restaurants in New York City and a beverage company, and by the way, I'm just not like I'm not like Lamboing. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not. Like I'm doing well. This is a good
usage of the word.
I'm
doing well, but I'm not Lamboing.
I'm not. Like and that's, and like, I also know that like if you're in it for Lamboing.
Yeah, it's over.
It's the wrong place to be. Like you just can't be in it for the cash money, because if you are, you're putting yourself in a really tough spot, because it just doesn't happen like that. I mean, not unless, and even for the tech stars, like it's a grind. Yeah. It's a grind. It's a real grind, and you are going, it's just hard. Yeah. And I'm not saying that's not to discourage. Like I'm saying go. Like if here's a great book to read. It's called The E-Myth Revisited. It's written by a guy named Michael Gerber. He says, and this line stuck with me when I read it. I read it before I went into business for the first time. And he said, just because you're a plumber doesn't mean that you should open up a plumbing company. Like you might be the best plumber, but you might also really love leaving work and leaving work. Like that might be the reason why you're such a great plumber. When you're an entrepreneur, it is never over. It is never over. Like my life, I am on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yep. There's no excuse. I can't be like, oh, but I'm sick. Oh, but my family is sick. Oh, I've got to go. Like, it's like, yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. The shit's got to get done. And like, if you've got nobody on your team that can actually do it, which you should definitely work to build, you got to do it.
Yeah.
And there, you know, like the person that loves your brand probably loves your brand because it's available to them all the time. They can rely on it. They trust you, you know, and I think that is one of the hardest things to do is to I think what people are looking for. Like, I know, you know, like there's certain brands that I love, and the reason why I love them is because I trust them. Like, I trust. Look, I've been a sneaker kid since I was born. You know, like I've always loved sneakers, always. And there are two brands of sneakers that I just love.
Yeah.
I just love
Nike, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Like Nike and Vans. They're the two pairs of sneakers that I've pretty much collected since I'm a kid.
Yeah.
And like, I was never an Adidas dude until recently. Like, I like Adidas, but I'm not like an Adidas collector.
Yeah.
And like, I trust those brands to come out with some dope shit that is going to make me happy constantly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's why that's what they've done. And they've done that for hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah.
You know, like they've done that very well, and it's a trust thing. And like, the reason why they're so trusted is because they are always coming out with some dope shit. And if they find something really awesome, they will do it in every possible which way you can imagine. And every time you're like, oh. And then they'll bring it back like 10 years later.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and so like, they're masters.
Yep.
And, you know, in the restaurant game, it's very similar. You know, like for me, like the way I think about business in restaurants is you've got, most people have 5 restaurants. I call it the cluster. It's a 5-restaurant cluster. Why are they? Because every time you go there, you know you're going to have a good meal and the people like you there. You go because you are treated well and and the vibes are good and you feel good in the place. Typically, it's no more than 5 restaurants. Everybody has their go-to spots. And the reason why the restaurant industry is so difficult is because trying to bumping one of those places out of somebody's cluster and slipping in is really hard. It's just really hard. People will explore, not a lot, but they will go to a new restaurant.
Yep.
But very, very rarely does that new restaurant become one of their joints.
Yeah.
And so my job is to not only get people to try us, but be so good when they're there that we get them to come back, because they got to come at least 3 or 4 times to like really be a part of the to have any chance at scratching the surface of the cluster.
Yeah.
And you know, one other piece of the business that's so hard is, you know, I explain the restaurant industry like this: like, you walk into, for instance, your business, right? Somebody goes online and they love your jeans. They go online and they're like, I'm gonna go spend X dollars on a pair of jeans. Let's call it $70, right? Go spend $70 on a dope pair of jeans. I don't communicate with anybody, and even in a brick and mortar, right? Like clothing retail, they walk into the store. Maybe they're greeted by a security guard. Maybe they're not. They walk around the store. They grab a couple of things that they want to try on. They try them on. Maybe somebody says, "Oh, that looks really good on you," or not. The person that they do communicate with is the cashier. So you are guaranteed that they are going to communicate with one person, potentially 2, right? The restaurant industry. Somebody comes in to drop $70 at one of my restaurants. They are greeted by a host. They're taken to a table. Their water is dropped. A server walks over, takes the order, sends it into the bartender, then sends in the food order to the kitchen. Then there's a manager in the front and the back. There are prep cooks downstairs typically, which makes. So I'm at 15 people already, $70 for that one touch point in a retail store. Yep. So you got to just imagine that, like, it's just tough, man. Yeah. Like 15 people for the same transaction, you know. So like it's just, that's why it's a tough business. I think, and that's like my experience, is that it's just a tough business for those reasons. Is like, you know, but I think at the end of it all, business in general, you know, the business of business is relationships, and relationships, the foundation of relationships is trust.
Yeah. I get it. So did you then go on? You opened 5 more restaurants. Those all were successful. And then you opened a different concept, is that right?
Yeah,
And what was that one called?
it's called Seamore's.
And what's the concept behind that?
So Seamore's is a local sustainable seafood concept.
Got it.
So I basically about four years into the Meatball Shop, I knew that I wasn't going to be the guy to take it from 5 to 50. Like I learned that about myself. I wanted to get creative again. My partner Dan and I, our sort of visions started to, the business was growing, and as the business was growing, our vision was also growing apart a little bit. And I think that happens somewhat regularly. And sometimes you get through it and sometimes you don't. I just knew at that point that I was like, I really want to get creative again. That is what makes me happy. And so I had started planning with those guys to say, hey, like, this doesn't need 2 captains to steer the ship. I really want to get creative again. I'm honestly not as happy as I'd like to be, and happiness is everything for me as an individual. I need to be happy, and so I'm gonna zoom out of Meatball. And I had this. I'd grown up fishing on the weekends, so I would always go fishing on Sundays as a kid, and I love fishing and I love the ocean, and seafood is I love eating seafood, and so I wanted to do for fish tacos what I did for meatballs, because I love fish tacos. And I was sick and tired of hearing from people, oh, you got to go to LA for a good fish taco. And I'm like, yo, no, you don't. Like, I love LA and I love going.
Yeah.
But you can get a good fish taco here in New York, and I'm going to be the guy to do it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to develop this fish taco thing. And as I started to dive into the concept, I started to look at the ocean as a whole, and it's like, obvious, we're hearing all about it. It's not like in the greatest place between global warming and plastic and overfishing and unregulation and all these things that are like real issues. I said, man, how can I open up a seafood restaurant right now? Unless I only serve fish that is 100% sustainable. We have like a tuna, salmon, halibut, shrimp, scallop epidemic globally. Like, when you ask 10 people what they like to eat out of the ocean, 9 out of 10 are going to say salmon and shrimp. And so we've got a real problem there. Like, there is no more Atlantic salmon because it doesn't exist, because too many people want it and it was overfished to the point of extinction.
Yeah.
And so they started farming it. But I said, if I take a risk here and I open up a restaurant that only serves local, abundant, and sustainable seafood, this would be an amazing opportunity for the environment. And also, like, I felt like I could do something. I felt like I had the trust from the people in New York, from the Meatball Shop, to introduce a concept like this.
Yeah.
So I'm serving porgy and blackfish and bluefish and dogfish and monkfish and fluke and flounder and black sea bass and all sorts of shit that nobody knows about, but is like the New Yorkers of the ocean, and so I wanted to do that, and so I did similar thing to the Meatball Shop. I created an environment that was like the music I grew up on. The feeling was amazing. It was high fives and hugs all around. You walk into the restaurant, it's just like good energy, good people. Except I'm serving you fish tacos with Acadian redfish. Yeah. And I did it, and I did it alone.
And how was that one received?
Unbelievably well.
Really?
Yeah, unbelievably well. And I did that 3 years ago, and I've opened up 5 more of those.
Jesus.
So I've got 6 of those now, and I just opened up the biggest restaurant of my career, which is doing like enormously well, which is just like, I'm like, God, man, why didn't I just open up fucking mega restaurants from the get-go?
Yeah.
Because I look at the guys that I look up to, and I watch what they're doing, and they're just only opening up big restaurants. Yeah. But it's scary to open up a 7,500 square foot restaurant, where your rent is fucking $750,000 a year, and you're, it's like Danny Meyer says it best. Danny Meyer says, the restaurant industry is like it's an insane it's an insane proposition. You are opening up a manufacturing plant on the most expensive piece of real estate money can buy. You want your manufacturing plant to be on like 59th Street and Madison Avenue. Like, you want it there. Like, that's where you want it. Yeah. And you'll like settle for like less, But like the ideal situation, you want it on like Houston and Broadway. You want it on like fucking, you want it in the best possible piece of real estate on the planet.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like who opens up, like, would you ever open up a factory that does all your clothes on like Melrose and fucking, like,
We're in Vernon.
yeah. So like that's you know what I'm saying? Like that's the restaurant game. So I opened up this big restaurant, and it's across the street from Goldman Sachs, and in the same building as American Express headquarters, and down the street from Condé Nast headquarters, and it's just like amazing real estate. It's just an amazing piece of real estate, and man, like you asked about, like that restaurant made me feel like, man, I'm only 2 weeks into it. I opened it up on the 12th.
Oh, right now you're only 2 weeks in.
Yeah, I opened it up on the 12th.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable how well it's doing. I'm so stoked for it.
Yeah.
Let
me ask you this. Is there anything that you've noticed, like, from doing this? Now you've opened all these restaurants. You've done the impossible 12 times. Is it 12 total?
It's 14, but we had to close one, yeah.
Okay, so is there anything that you've noticed as, like, now do you have any keys to success to opening a restaurant in New York? Or now do you have, or you know what I'm saying? Like, are you operating by any memory of do's and don'ts, or, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's funny. Every time I have a checklist, a big one, and every time I open up a restaurant or like get ready to open up a restaurant, I pull out my checklist. I say it as a but really I do actually. I have a 6 week out checklist.
Yeah.
And I think really the it's so tricky because New York is such an intense market.
Yeah.
Like people are really fickle, and it's you wouldn't think so, but it's incredibly seasonal. In the restaurant world, like people just like don't go out in the wintertime typically, and so I the do's and don'ts are really have more to do with business decisions than before I open a restaurant. I want to make sure that this checks out and that checks out and this checks out. I feel like I have gotten better at accepting people for who they are, and that stood in my way a lot. Just like because I think that's really what I've gotten better at, really accepting people for who they are, and being okay with people second guessing my vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would say one thing is crucial. Having a great publicist I can't speak for other industries.
Yeah.
I could speak for mine, certainly. Having a great publicist was instrumental and monumental in our career and in my path. And I think it's almost necessary today if you're trying to compete in the restaurant business. And it's not cheap. I think business is storytelling.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a story, people aren't gonna want to sit and listen.
Yeah.
So fucking get a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not everybody's a great storyteller.
Yeah.
And there are publicists out there that can really help you develop your story and tell it for you.
Yeah.
Or put you in the best possible position to tell it.
Yeah.
But I really believe that. I really believe that authenticity is pretty necessary today. Although when you look at Instagram, you actually you don't necessarily get that.
Yeah,
like you don't. But like I think in real sort of like meaningful business, authenticity is very important, and having a story, is really important. Like people want for thousands of years, people sit around and want to hear stories.
Yeah.
It's human condition. People love to hear a great story.
Yeah.
And typically every circle has like one person that is captivating.
Yeah.
One person that's able to get in front of a group of people and everybody's just
Yeah, that's true. It's a unique skill.
Yeah.
What was the thing you were saying about patterns?
So, the person who put this in my sort of like in my path in front of me was Seth Godin.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to him in a number of different places, but it's also been like sort of handed to me so many times over the years, and I just like decided to not look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think subconsciously our patterns sort of predetermine our react respond in a lot of cases. And once Seth Godin was like, dude, the only way people can change is if they are aware, very clearly aware of their patterns, their habits.
Got it.
And so I really started to pay attention to the feeling I would get when I didn't like something.
Yeah.
Whether it was with my wife or whether it was with my business partner or whether it was with an employee, I just started to, I was like, okay, I don't like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in this situation before many times where I didn't like it.
Yeah.
What the fuck is it that I really don't like about it? Is it the situation or is it me?
Yeah.
Is it them or is it me?
And so now you're able to more clearly tell the difference.
Well, now I'm aware of it and I acknowledge it, and so it's just peeling back the onion.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's gonna suck, but like, get real with yourself, man. Like, if you're in the same situation over and over again, typically with the same group of people, and you feel the same fucking way, you can point a finger all day.
Yeah.
But chances are you're putting yourself there, and also you've got a lot of something to do with it, not a little to do with it.
Yeah.
And so I've been looking at that, and that's really been helpful for me to just like, look at that shit and say, okay, Mike, like, don't blame anybody for this.
Yeah.
Just don't. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Take accountability for it,
Yeah, it's huge. I think that's such a huge thing that people aren't like super aware of. And then also, what about like health is like now super heavily tied into all the stuff you do, right? You have like a thing that you do with all your staff, or what's that? Tell me what that is.
So we have something at Seamore. It's called Fit Squad.
Okay.
And Fit Squad is it is a in the beginning we were doing it every Wednesday morning, and I found out that like not everybody's as psycho as I am that want to run at fucking 8:00 in the morning on a Wednesday in the middle of the winter.
Yeah.
But once a month we all meet up as a crew, and it's sort of like a barter with fitness studios, where either I'll buy their crew lunch or their crew dinner, and then they'll take us in and teach take the whole staff or whoever wants to show up. It's open to the whole staff. At Seamore's, anybody can come, and we'll either go to a studio as a team, or the instructor will clear out the tables and chairs in the restaurants, and the instructor will come and teach us in our house. Or I'll take the crew on a run, or I'll teach the crew a boot camp. But it's an awesome thing to offer the staff. It gets them sort of stoked to be around each other in a different way. And they all like work hard and sweat together, and it's kind of cool. And B, it also introduces fitness to my team. Because like I said, like the guests at all the restaurants are really, really important to me. Really important to me. But the crew, by far and away, the most important. Because I know that, because I was a technician for so long, in a restaurant. Like, I know that if I'm not happy, it's over. You know what I mean? Like, whether I'm the owner of the company or an hourly employee, like, if I'm not happy, it's over. And so my number one goal and obligation and priority as a business owner for my team is to make sure, or do my fucking best to introduce happiness and support, and just sort of like, I'm the kind of guy where, the staff, nobody expects that. Like, I'll be at the restaurant on a Friday night, like this, and nobody, unless they know who I am, they think I'm a fucking busboy. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
that's like, that makes me happy.
Yep.
And that's how this, like I walk into the restaurant and the staff isn't like, the staff is like, yo, Mike, hey, it's just like this environment.
Yeah.
And they thrive in that environment.
Yeah.
Because they know it's not all about the money for me at all. They know that they're like, they are the blood of the business. They are the front line of who we are.
Yeah.
They represent the brand, and they all feel that and know that it's not just a job.
Yeah.
And I also know I've right now between the two companies I have over 800 employees, and I haven't hired every single one of them, because once a restaurant is open, I don't like micromanage the managers and say I have to meet every server you hire.
Yeah.
But for the opening of every restaurant, I meet everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone. I am part of the interview process, not because I'm like a control freak, but because I can teach people how to serve. I can teach people how to make a drink. I can teach people how to cook a piece of fish. I cannot teach you how to smile.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah.
Like that's not teachable.
Yeah.
Like I can't teach you how to be happy or have a good positive energy. Like I just can't teach you that.
Yeah.
That is something that you have or you don't.
Yeah.
There, like who says it? Ice Cube, right? Ice Cube. I saw him on some talk show, and he was like, and the guy was like, dude, you just look fucking miserable.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, they call me Mean Mug because like I'm not miserable. I just look miserable. He's like, and I'm happy. Like I can't have
you're not
somebody.
changing Ice Cube.
You know what I mean? Like I can't have somebody on the staff that just looks miserable, even if they're ecstatic inside. Like if they're just like,
yeah, no room for Mean Mug in the
yo,
restaurant
dude,
business.
you know what I'm saying? Like you just can't. Like people got to look around and be like, oh,
Yeah.
You know?
I agree, man. Was it hard to get people to start doing the fitness thing, and have you noticed a difference? The reason I ask is because I myself want to inject a little bit of that into this staff, but it just seems like hard. Like this is a bit of a cop out, but it seems hard to get them to commit. It seems like to get everyone over the hill of like, hey, this is something we're all doing as a family. I know we'll all feel better afterwards, but was like implementing it difficult?
It goes back to that commitment thing, you know? Like if you commit to it, you should just do it. Yeah. And they see if you're like, hey, meet me here every whatever twice a month at this time, and you just keep showing up, and they will.
Yeah.
I believe that. And not everybody, man, like you can't force people to do really anything unless you put a gun to their head.
Yeah.
But I doubt you're gonna walk into your office one day with just like a burner.
So
and
yo,
just be
Fit
like,
Squad, let's go. We're going to Soul Cycle.
But I believe that like it's hard,
but worth it.
But worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth it. People get together and they sweat. Like fitness has taken on a real life of its own today. It's crazy to see.
Yep.
It's crazy to see.
Very true. Let me ask you this. This is the big question. What in the hell do you do from here? Like you've accomplished so much. You just freshly opened this massive restaurant, right? So that might be a little foreshadowing. Where do you go from here? What do you do with all this knowledge you've gained and relationships?
It's a great question. I think I'll always be in the restaurant industry at some capacity for sure.
Yep.
I have so many. I have interest in so many things. I have interest in fashion. Like I love fashion and I love style, and so I think I haven't even said this out loud to anybody outside of the people that I'm starting this thing with, but I'm starting a little clothing line called 3 Day Weekend. Nice. And it's a small little thing that we're gonna try out. I think it's gonna be fun. I've always wanted to do it. I personally just I believe that I will grow I want to grow my personal brand. I feel like that is really like with all the stuff, the restaurants. I feel like I can if I find great people better than me, much better than me, which is like always a priority for me. I'll be able to do other things because I don't want to be. I've been pigeonholed as this food dude. Yeah. And I don't want to be known as just the food dude. Yeah. Even though I love the food dude, I love the food dude. Yeah. Yeah. But like I also love like the motorcycle enthusiast. I also love the guy that really like enjoys style and fashion and fitness and family and fishing. Like I have all these other things that I love, and I feel like I can just bring them all together. Like at some point, like I don't know if it's a consulting company, I don't know what it is, but it is coming together. I'm 37, and I've got like 9 years under my belt as a business owner, and I'm learning every day. And I like to meet dudes like you that I can take things in my back pocket and carry with me for the future, because short answer, I short story long.
There you go.
I don't have I have a plan through 2021 with Seamore's.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Meatball Shop is opening up in DC in a couple of weeks. Seamore's is going to grow. We're launching Well with 6 new SKUs in September, which is a beverage company. It's a cold pressed juice beverage company that I launched a couple of years ago. I think that I want to have a sort of diverse portfolio of businesses that I either launch or I'm a part of, and sort of have more of a legacy as a modern day sort of Renaissance dude. Yeah, like that's like the vibe that's the vibe I get. That's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm just trying to do. Like I love being a dad too. Like I like. I'm a dad, man. That's fucking weird for me to say, but I am. I'm a dad of these 2 boys that I fucking love.
How old are they?
3 years old and 10 months.
Oh yeah, so you're fresh dad.
Yeah, I'm fresh dad, but like, guess what, man? I've never knew. Everybody be like, oh, when you have kids, you're just gonna learn this new love that you've never felt before, and like I love these dudes. Like I love them so much. Yeah. That I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to work out so I can have breakfast with them in the morning. You know what I mean? Like that's how much that's real love. Yo, the 5
a.m. workout is
I just changed my life for that and as to be expected. Yep. But like I think that there is a way to put them all together. Like I think TV's been a fun thing for me to do. So I think I'll continue to work in that world. Yep. Yeah, man, I'm trying to be you, bro.
Stop it. That's exciting, man. It's gonna be fun to watch. Let me ask you the big deep ender.
Deep end. Let's go deep.
If you could travel back in time in your Renaissance man time machine, and you could pop up somewhere like just in a sketchy corner of New York City, and you just run into young you, just running wild, right? And I'm guessing at the time, like you were hungry and you were ambitious and you wanted more, but you're just kind of in this like off the path, right? And you could just have 2 seconds with little young you to maybe set you a little bit more straight, or, take some of the pointless worry off your mind or whatever. What would you now tell the young version of yourself now that you're in a pink palm tree shirt, just fucking killing it? How do you tell him to get here quicker? Or not worry as much or whatever?
I'm going to open the window up and let some air in for that before I react, right? I'm just going to think about that for a sec because, what would I tell young me? Like I said, I wouldn't change that. I really wouldn't. I think all those things, all those experiences that I had then were really just like necessary because I felt like I needed the abuse, strangely. Mm-hmm. But if I was to meet me on the street and see me wilding out like I was, I think I was probably not happy with me. I think I was struggling to find me. And I think probably what I would say is, yo, man, you are okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're okay. You can, I think that's what I really struggled with. So I think today I can look in the mirror, and of course I'm a human being. Like I could beat myself up at times, but I'm so much more comfortable with who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as young as teenagers and early 20-year-olds, like we are just like on this constant, like we are trying to impress other people constantly because we need that we have a hunger for approval and a hunger for other people's sort of sign off. Like, oh, it's
that validation.
That validation.
Yeah.
And so, and yo, man, I still look for it at times.
Of course,
I think what we do, we just all do. But I think the piece of advice that I would give to somebody in their late teens, early 20s that are just out there getting after it in a not great way, like, it's okay to be you. Like, you don't have to try to be somebody else to get that validation from your peers. Like, because I think that's what I struggle with, man. And today I know that I think people post pictures of themselves, like in a thong on social media because like they work hard on that. Like, I'm not taking any credit
Some of
from
them.
that.
Not all the ones posting thong pics are working hard.
but you know what I'm saying? But the whole purpose of that post is to be like, look how, like, I'm like, this post is going to tell me how fly I am by how many people are liking it.
Yeah.
Like, there are people, I think a lot of people have to look into somebody else's eyes to see how they're doing.
Yeah. And think about the fact that that's one of the most extreme examples, meaning like the thong pic is like directly for no other reason than how many likes does my butt get. But that's the sort of culture that social media is creating for almost everything. You know what I mean? It's like you're letting people validate how your lunch was if you post a picture of your lunch, and that's just to double down on your point. I think that you're dead on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it is, and yo, man, we all want to be loved, like, I think the human condition, just in general, it all boils down to love. We want to love and be loved. That is what it is. That is just what it is. And I know that sounds a little, hokey pokey, but like that is what it boils down to. Love is real. Like, we want people to love us, and we ultimately want to love others. And we don't always know how to, and sometimes we got to go through fucking hills and valleys to figure it out, but I think at the end of the day, like, that is what it is, and I know that, like, I think the success of my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, my relationship with my business partners and my staff is like, I've realized that. I know that. Like, I am cool with, like, letting people love me and also loving back and being useful in that way, So I would just say, I guess, and I don't know if I'd be able to hear it at that age. I'd probably be like, yo, dude, who the fuck are you? Go fuck yourself. Like, what do you mean just be me? Fuck
Must
you,
be
I
nice
am
with
me,
your
son.
nice new Nikes on. Go ahead, judge me. You know what I mean? That's how we are at that age.
Yeah. I think I would have, but I think if I could say something that would act, and that whoever was listening, maybe it was me at that time, would actually appreciate it and use it. Yeah. Like, I would say, yo, dude, it's okay. You can be you. Keep going down the path. You're gonna go down the path, but like, when you go home, and after you're trying to be somebody else all day and all night, and you're really uncomfortable with yourself, because I was, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay, dude. I think that's probably it. And
there it is. That to me is what we call a strong ending. Michael, thank you for doing this, man. You absolutely crushed that.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for all the good advice. feedback. And as we talked about in the beginning, you're a pro at this. So you just, flew
Yo,
through
dude,
the story.
thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
This was great.
Giving me an excuse to come out to Lala.
There we go. Anytime. That's a wrap.
Guys, if you like that and you want to see more like it, as well as vlogs, other web series, and all the random stuff that I'm doing here on YouTube, don't forget to click that subscribe button. You won't regret it, I promise.